Hello and welcome to the Rhythm of Business podcast series. I have with us this morning Brendon Curtis, who is the founder and owner of Puffy Cotton Candy, located out of Nashville, Tennessee. Brendon, good to have you this morning. Just getting us started. Tell me a little bit about yourself and sort of how you got started in this world of entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Terry. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Brendon Curtis, again, co-founder of Puffy Cotton Candy. The business has really only been in business for about 18 months now. I started my career in advertising, working for several large corporate, world-renowned advertising agencies, doing TV production, website development, social media, and really loved that career. Got a little burnt out about
Okay.
15 years into it, and had sort of the entrepreneur itch since I was a kid, being
Okay.
very inventive with different products and services, and never truly had the courage to act upon and execute any of my ideas until a little later in life. Um, Partially by necessity, but mostly because I felt like I had reached an age where it was time to do something of my own. And it was a dream of mine to start my business. I wasn't quite sure what form that business would take until about 2 years ago when
Okay.
I discovered cotton candy and my passion for it, and realized there was a bit of white space to turn that sort of category into more of a national premium experience. And
Wow.
what I mean by that is that in the traditional sense, most people who have either had or not had cotton candy as a treat, you can only find it at a fair or a sporting event, or it's
Yep.
packed into a tin foil or a plastic tub and it's a bit stale. And I was always frustrated by the fact that I couldn't find it made fresh or hot anywhere except for a fair. And I was always first in line at the fair or a sporting event if it was being sold. And it was a relatively affordable, delicious treat, and kind of fascinating to watch the process of it being made. And one day, about 2 or 3 years ago, I noticed someone making it on a cart in the middle of winter, and there was a line of 10 people waiting to get just a puff of cotton candy. And I was one of those people who stood in line waiting.
Yeah.
And after 15 minutes of freezing, I decided, look, I don't have much more patience to wait in this cold line. And then the light bulb really went off. And I thought to myself, wow, look at the demand for this product. It's an affordable treat. You can't find it anywhere. And then I asked my wife, I said, why doesn't a cotton candy store exist? Like, wouldn't that be neat? And it got me thinking, there's a million cookie stores, a million
Yep.
cupcake stores and candy stores, frozen yogurt, whatever the dessert might be, but there's never been a cotton candy store. And I decided, like, let's take a risk and flip that idea of sort of the traditional candy you might find at a fair, and make it into a premium, very vibrant kind of retail store experience. Because again, there's never been a store that you could walk into 24/7, or a normal business, and
Yeah.
buy it anytime you want, like you could a cookie or a traditional candy store. And I had this very specific vision of kind of an old-fashioned candy store where people look through the window and watch the process being made,
Mhm.
uh, and also kind of marrying that to more of a modern touch of a candy store. So what we created, and we're in the Cool Springs Galleria in Franklin, just outside of
Beautiful, beautiful
Nashville.
area.
Yeah, just it's our first store, and my wife and I live here in Franklin. We've got two kids here. We felt it was a natural place to kind of launch our business, and it's been fantastic. It's about 1,000 square feet. All we do is cotton candy. We have four product categories, just traditional clouds of cotton candy that we've got four stations in the store. You can watch it as a customer and kind of be mesmerized by the process. It really hits
Wow.
all your senses in terms of sight and smell and taste and so on. And it's a really magical visual experience. And that's what we did with our design of our stores, to really kind of make it an engaging experience. We didn't want it to be something where you sat down and you're at a table eating it like many traditional restaurants. The idea is that you would walk in kind of like a Candyland
Hmm.
experience,
Oh yeah.
watch the process be made, and then leave overjoyed. And one of the things that we make that's really unique, and probably we're one of the few companies in the world that do it, and probably the only one in Tennessee for sure. I've done some research. I can't find anyone else that does this, but we make these edible art sculptures. So they're about 2 feet tall of cotton candy, and we sculpt them into Sonic the Hedgehog or a unicorn or a puppy or a teddy
Oh,
bear. We've
wow.
got hundreds of these kind of variations. They're all different colors and flavors and sizes. And kids literally eat it up. Families just love the process. And it's sort of something we've turned into an art medium where we've taken the form of cotton candy, we've created a sort of sculpture element to it where we assemble and cut all these pieces. And the end product looks so realistic. A lot of people confuse it for being plushies or stuffed animals. But it's I can liken it to almost a Build-A-Bear experience if you're familiar with
Yes.
Build-A-Bear,
Yes,
where
I am.
customers walk in, they choose their character, and they watch the process of that character come to life. And it's sort of the same idea. We never really had that thought, or they didn't, Build-A-Bear didn't inspire us necessarily. It was only after the fact when we launched the business and we thought to ourselves, like, this is really similar to Build-A-Bear, except you can eat the product. The shelf life is limited. It's not, you don't have years or decades worth of
Yeah.
holding the animal, but you do leave our experience with some pretty incredible memories, and it's a really truly unique, one of a kind experience, and we're really proud to bring that to this area. And our goal is to eventually, roll this out across several stores, if not hundreds. That's our ultimate vision, similar to a Crumble Cookies franchise
Sure.
or a Chinese ice cream, where we're having one of these in every location. And we're targeting Nashville next. In fact, we've been looking at Nashville for the last year, downtown and across Nashville, to open our next 2 stores. And today we're hoping to execute contracts for our first franchise, which will be based in New Jersey. So that's something exciting that we've recently decided to do, is to franchise the business, because my wife and I can't travel to St. Louis or
Yeah.
Miami or Trenton, New Jersey to manage these stores on our own. We're going to need some help on the ground to do so.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, that is impressive. And as you shared that, I'm listening to the one thing that you said that just resonated with me is the when you say Candyland, of course I grew up with Candyland as a
Amen.
as a board game, right? So you've created that experience. And as you've got this energy for that, Brendon, and you and your wife and whoever else is on your team, as you got this energy and you've got this magical space that you're operating in, you know, how do you help a business owner to keep the rhythm as far as the rhythm of business? How do you help them keep the rhythm as you think about where you want to go? How do you do that with potential growth?
It's a great question. And I'll be honest, I don't have any food or restaurant like formal training or experience running past restaurants.
Mhm.
This is something that was sort of bootstrapped, and something that just felt like I had a lot of common sense going into it. Did a lot of research to kind of be scrappy and figure out, like,
Mhm.
how would I open a store? How do I secure funding? How do I, handle permitting and construction and the design of the store from end to end, and actually running and managing and operating the store. It's something where I used to be kind of in an office role at the corporate level for 20 years,
Mhm.
at a desk. And now I'm standing on my feet and not at a desk all day, and kind of spinning cotton candy and managing a team and scheduling and taking calls with the press and working on our franchise model. So there's a lot of kind of new exciting developments that always seem to keep us on our feet, literally, but also figuratively, in the sense that all of these crazy opportunities keep coming our way because of what we've created and how that's so unique. So I think there's a lot of organic fuel, to answer your question, that helps keep that rhythm
Mhm.
going. But also just really being in touch with culture and pop media, and paying attention to what's happening in the music and film and television and art
Oh,
and
wow.
even animation industries, because that really helps fuel what we do from a creative perspective, is to have a creative vision. Ultimately, we see ourselves as artists. I also don't have a formal art background. I do come from creative marketing agencies and advertising agencies, where I'm very familiar with branding, and that's really kind of what I've applied to our businesses.
Mhm.
My skill set and experience from a branding perspective, a marketing perspective, advertising, social media, and down the line. has really helped me kind of put a wrapper around our concept that visualizes it and brands it in a way that's incredibly unique and sets it apart from any competition, which we don't have at
Mm,
the moment, but it is springing up. I think our direct competitors would be the sense of like, candy shops or cookies or ice
sure.
cream or even vending machines that sell candy. If you're in, just, hunkering for a sweet or a treat. So that rhythm, we try to find inspiration from all sorts of places, but pop culture is certainly one area that we're very in touch with. And as I grow older, in my 40s now, one of the things that I try to do to remain youthful is good exercise
Yeah.
and good eating, but also not completely losing touch with what's happening around us from a social media perspective, entertainment, business. I'm very still involved and interested in what's going on in the world. I'm trying not to like be so I guess myopic or closed-minded about certain
Yeah.
areas. I'm always kind of hungry to learn more and to keep in
Yeah.
touch with the latest trends because again, that's what really fuels our product and our innovation and to keep us fresh and not necessarily seasonal.
Yeah.
We're a pretty year-round product, but we are heavily influenced by what's going on with new movie releases and album releases and whatnot to help introduce new product and character evolvement or evolution from our business. As our target is really families, but generally speaking, it's more of children, kind of ages 6 to 14, who are our biggest connoisseurs of our product and really love it the most. And we do a lot of social listening and customer feedback evaluation from what we hear on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, which are huge channels for us organically to grow
Mhm.
our brand and our following. And we get requests and comments, and we have huge dialogue with our audience every day from a social perspective to learn more and really deliver what they're asking for. In fact, half of our menu has really stemmed from listening to comments on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube about what our audience wants. And a lot of these characters and things that they were suggesting, we had no idea what they were. Not that we've been completely out of touch, but there's, hundreds of different cartoons and video
Sure.
games, really obscure things that, kids are interested in nowadays. And we had to do a lot of reading into those things and to really figure out if there was any momentum or rhythm to those things that we could apply to our business. And we found that that's been one of our major success points. It's just common sense of listening to customers, which in this case are families and kids that have influenced what we do on the daily.
Well, think about, as you're sharing, you all are evolving as things are evolving around you, and there's this give and play with what's happening with you all, the creativity, the movies that come out, the games that come out, all of those things are happening. And at some point as a business owner, entrepreneur, you and your wife could be like, well, since you can't go to St. Louis or New Jersey, there's different things you can do. But how do you stay focused and passionate as you're getting inundated with all these requests, media, and you got to get something new and something else is pulling you here, TikTok, Instagram, all those things. How do you keep yourself passionate? Because you come across as very passionate about and excited about what you're doing. So how do you keep that as all these things are happening around you?
It's tough. It's not easy. There's a work-life balance as an entrepreneur and a
Mhm.
startup essentially is what we were for the first several months where there was no work-life balance. We do have two children. It was really tough to manage them and it was disappointing to them to see how much time we were spending at work. I will say though that it is the first job that we've ever had that our kids have been mildly interested in, and now
Oh,
they're
wow.
because they enjoy the product and they can see
Absolutely.
it as a sort of a tangible storefront. Whereas my past jobs were office jobs and it wasn't really clear to them what we did. And now they can like literally walk into our store and see something tangible and look
Mm,
around and see the fanfare and it excites them. And I've been really personally proud of that is that, the fact that now my son and daughter now love and think it's cool what we do, which
yeah.
is great. I've considered myself to have cool jobs in the past, but nothing has been as cool as this in their eyes, and that's generally what kind of drives me, and making sure that we leave a legacy for the kids and they can take over the business one day, and we hope that they will. That's sort of the plan that we're trying to lay out. But to remain focused and sharp and not get distracted by a lot of the things that you just described is ultimately tough. We just have to do our best, and to take some time off, and if we know 7 days straight are coming, like we just have to figure out a way to staff and make a day or two off for ourselves as husband and wife, or even separately, to go
Yeah.
get a massage or go see a movie or go on a hike, or go on a trip, whatever that might be, just to detach and to really kind of step away from it. Because when we're working from the store so often, which we tend to do, the walls do tend to cave in a bit, and
Yeah.
you start to lose sight of what's out there. And it's really hard after a long day of work, spinning cotton candy and working with customers all day and answering phone calls and responding to emails and social media, and kind of keeping the system going and managing a large staff at the same time. We've got about 10 to 12 employees,
Oh, wow.
and we're constantly recruiting and training, in the hopes of expanding the business and opening second and third stores soon. So lots of distractions and challenges, which we try to embrace. A lot of it's new to us. I think what has been the most interesting is just the press attention that we're getting. Local television has been great. We've been on a couple appearances for CBS and ABC in Nashville, and we've been in the Tennessean featured, the Williamson source. But our biggest exposure was the Drew Barrymore show that we were
Oh,
on
wow.
about 2 months ago, which was incredibly exciting to be on
Wow.
national television. So those kinds of opportunities we never dreamt would come our way. We kind of joked that maybe at some point we might have a viral video, which we've had probably 30 of them now.
Wow.
We literally have 30 different social videos with over 1 million views, and some with over 10 million views. In total, probably a couple 100 million views of our content. That's entirely organic. So a lot of those surprises kind of help us, and fuel us, and inspire us and motivate us to keep going. But it's a lot to juggle. To your point, the only way to do it is to really just spend the time of doing it. But we're trying to get to a point where we do have a better work-life balance. But frankly, I think we're still in startup mode, and will remain in startup mode for a couple more years as we start to build out new stores. And as our franchise component or model starts to grow, that's certainly going to draw even more time and energy from us. And it's a lot of meditation, and just remaining calm, and treating each other, with respect and fairness, and gratitude certainly goes a long way as well.
I love the way you talk about your business. It's so real, and so real that somebody with such passion and drive. And as you think about your future and what you plan to do, whether it's franchise and other locations, how do you do it strategically? I mean, as you think about trying to share with the audience, how do you do it strategically, or you're waiting for it to happen organically, or where's the rhythm with your growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. And frankly, franchising is something new to us. There was zero rhythm with it when we started, because our vision for the company was, let's start one successful store in Franklin. We'll do a second and a third, and we'll live comfortably. That
Hmm.
was kind of the limit to our vision at the time,
Oh,
about
wow.
2 years ago. So I wouldn't call it naive or too short-sighted, but I would call it, because we never saw like the potential kind of magnitude and momentum that we've achieved so quickly. We never really looked at it as becoming a national brand or an international brand. And we even had an opportunity a few months ago that was close to being signed, where we were going to open 30 of our Puffy Cotton Candy franchises in the Middle East, across several countries in the Middle East. And with the conflict that started to occur about 4 months ago, and is still going on, that kind of derailed that project a bit, and at least
Hmm.
put it on hold, temporarily. We hope to revisit that, but even something like that, to start a franchise and do 30 of them out of the gate was just overwhelming. And it wasn't
Yes.
something that we were prepared for. It wasn't something that and we were getting hundreds of franchise requests via social media and just cold call emails. There was no sort of proactive outreach that we were doing to market ourselves. It was just
Mhm.
all this attention and fanfare we were getting on social media that was a new category or territory that we were not prepared to contend with from the start. And as we started to explore the ideas I mentioned before, we ultimately landed on the franchise model going forward because of the fact that we just simply can't stretch ourselves to St. Louis or
Absolutely.
Trenton or wherever those locations are, especially the Middle East. I'm not even sure how we would have managed that, but it would have probably required the majority of our time with flights back and forth there,
Yeah.
managing 30 locations or franchises there. So in hindsight, it was almost good that we didn't start with that. And we got some good advice along the way for some mentors that advised, let's start with franchising in the US first before you start to
Yeah.
commit to overseas franchises. And the idea of franchising was a bit new to us as well. We were familiar with the concept.
Sure.
We weren't familiar with sort of the rigor that goes into that process. And we've
Mhm.
learned quite a bit. So with sort of how those contracts are formed and the whole structure and model of a franchise. So we certainly wouldn't call ourselves pros at this point, but we're a lot more in touch with how to run a franchise and to sort of market ourselves and to get that rhythm going and continuing.
Mhm.
And the way that we evaluate and vet opportunities as qualified candidates, because we get hundreds of them a month, meaning the question of, are you a franchise? If so, how do I get involved and purchase one? So we've launched simple things like a section on our website that walks through our franchise details and gives potential franchisees a little bit more information about the investment levels required to open a Puffy Cotton Candy in your local hometown, wherever that might be. So a lot of those kind of simple steps of just information and a lot of phone calls and informational emails and Zooms like this one, talking through with candidates. We do really love candidates that have prior franchise experience if they currently own one, for example,
Mhm.
if they've worked in the restaurant business, if they've ever managed a business before. There's certain kind of liquidity and investment levels that they're going to need to kind of meet from a criteria perspective. And generally, like if the people feel like they have a similar
Mhm.
passion that we have, and that you've noticed with me, I
Sure.
want to notice those same or similar types of passion and enthusiasm for the brand and stamina, frankly, and
There you
commitment
go.
and loyalty to what they're doing. That was our biggest fear of franchising, is that we would have that kind of loss of control because we're so passionate and treat this store here in Franklin as our baby. It's always clean, it's always running well. We always want to make sure our employees are treated fairly and that we compensate them well and that they're happy and that this is the best job they'll ever have or ever had. So we definitely put a lot into it and hope that we can replicate that kind of joy
That's
and enthusiasm that we try to establish in our Nashville or Franklin location. We want to see that replicated. And that was our biggest fear. Like, can we do this in other locations at the same level or high level in caliber that we would expect it to be? So we do our best to vet candidates, and we say no to the majority of them. It just doesn't work out. A lot of people are attracted to us because it's kind of a new, fun, novel
sure.
thing. If you're familiar with like the dessert kind of scene on Instagram and just
Yes.
overflowing milkshakes and all of these kind of innovative dessert products, which we consider ourselves to live within the dessert category.
Mhm.
We are considered trendy, but the interesting thing about cotton candy is that it's been around for 100 years. Uh,
Yes.
this isn't something that was just invented or something new. It's actually a very traditional, old-fashioned type of candy that coincidentally was invented in Nashville of all places. So that was something too. That fun fact was something that kind of fueled our interest in it, and the fact that
Mhm.
we wanted to embrace something that was invented in our local community 100 years ago, and we've now kind of taken that and evolved it to a place where it's sort of a one of a kind experience, and it's the replication of that experience that definitely fuels us, and the ability to achieve that rhythm that we have here in other locations is our top priority.
Well, I mean that's so cool, and I think as you're sharing, Brendon, I mean I could listen to you all day, and I'm sure the audience is going to take this as like, wow, I wanted to go talk to that guy. But my question to you, my last question here,
Sure.
as we started out, again, you said what 2 years ago you were sitting around and trying to figure out, I had this idea. I stood in the line with these 10 people for this cotton candy. Okay, if you're talking to that aspiring entrepreneur that's sitting at their kitchen table or sitting in the restaurant with a napkin and drawing on it, like they've got this great idea, at least they believe it's a great idea. What advice do you give them if they're sitting there like you were 2 years ago or standing in that line 2 years ago? You saw this idea. How do you get them to move, to test the waters, to get off the couch, to move from the table, to move from the napkin? What advice would you give to that aspiring entrepreneur?
Take the plunge. It's
Mm,
something that I wish I did earlier in my career. And it's easier said than done. Take the plunge, but you want to do it strategically. You want to make sure you've got a good financial plan set up that you can fund what you're doing. Do your research on the idea. Does this idea already does this new idea that you've got, does it exist currently? Does it exist in some other form? Have
mhm,
you evolved it? Is it hyper unique? These are all kind of ideas that we toyed around with. Is like, how could cotton candy, a store, how could this not exist? We were so confused that no one had ever done it before. And that's sort of the idea behind invention in itself, or entrepreneurship, is kind of pioneering and innovating new categories or products or services. Everybody's got great ideas. Most of them don't see execution because they're so hard to execute. Everybody's got great ideas. Everybody's capable of coming up with brilliant ideas on the daily. It's those who truly have the courage
mm,
to go beyond and take that plunge, as I said, and be committed to it and go all in on it and kind of pivot, because my career again was 20 years in a totally different industry. I never had the courage personally, and I preach what I'm, to everyone listening to this. I wasn't doing it myself. I'm glad I did. It took me longer than I wish it did. I'm so glad that I did. I've never been this fulfilled or happy in a
mm,
career. Being your own boss is a big burden, but it
yeah,
also comes with incredible joy and satisfaction. I couldn't recommend it more. But again, just going through this, if you have a great idea and how to execute it, ask your friends, find a mentor, find a teacher or a professor or even a colleague that can help guide you, that you trust, and vet and validate that idea to make sure that you've got a proper roadmap. We didn't go into this flippantly. We went into this with a lot of thought. A lot of people thought we were crazy, and recommended that we don't do this. Like, Brendon, how could you leave your successful career in advertising to open a cotton candy shop? You don't know how often I heard that when I
yeah,
made this decision, or how frustrating and dejected I felt when I would hear that, because I didn't feel I was getting the support and admiration until I explained the concept. It took about a minute into explaining the concept, and then the light bulb went off for everyone else that I explained it to, that, oh my gosh, this actually does make sense. How can I get involved? How can I support you? And one other great piece of advice that I could give you that I didn't have at the time, but I discovered organically, was speaking with other entrepreneurs and business owners who have started, whether it was similar or totally different types of products and services. Because without those kind of scrappy tales that have
mm,
been told, you don't learn much on your own. There's a lot of mistakes that you can make. And without that kind of mentorship and guidance from experienced folks who have done this before, to avoid the pitfalls that certainly exist with being an entrepreneur, are huge. And
mhm,
thankfully, when I look back in hindsight, there were very few mistakes that we made. There are a few things we would have done differently, but thankfully, because of the mentorship that I received personally, that I hope others would receive themselves, that helped kind of guide me through, very challenging waters to get to where we are today. But ultimately, it's possible. I've done it. I wish I did it 2 decades or at least a
yeah,
decade ago earlier, but better late than never. Not to be cliche, but it's so true.
yeah,
Uh, and sometimes you just need that push, whether it's getting laid off from a job or being fired from a job. sometimes it has to be that severe to really push you in the direction that you feel like you've truly found your calling. I thought I found my calling with advertising. I enjoyed it, but I haven't found my true calling until now with this own business, and I'm so proud of it.
Yes. That I'm telling you what, Brendon, you have landed in that sweet spot that so many people are seeking to land. And thank you so much for taking time to share. And to the audience, thank you so much for listening. And we're speaking with Brendon Curtis, who is a co-founder of Puffy Cotton Candy, located in Nashville, Tennessee, or the area of Nashville, Tennessee. Look him up. They are awesome and they're doing great things. And reach out to him if you want more information. So thank you so much, Brendon, for your time.
Thank you too. It's an honor. I appreciate this.